He can twist the story to suit himself. He's a pathological liar. That is not what I said. He seems to conclude that I would have said that Afro-Guyanese are opportunists. That is not what I said. I said essentially the People's Progressive Party pay young African Guyanese to beat Indo-Guyanese, and then they turn around and use it to rally the support. And for that reason, I'm very skeptical of street protests at this stage. But Barra Jagdeo must know what they are up to and what they have been doing. A key person in the PPP had confirmed to me that that is what they do. Additionally, if you go back to the Queen and Bacchus protests, you will see that that protest was coming on the road. Nobody was being affected. You even saw some Indo-Guyanese chanting them on and so. But by the time they arrived at Monrepo, you had the forces that emerged there and begin to do the things that Jagdeo they orchestrate. So I have no doubt that they do it and they will continue to do it. Barra Jagdeo, I think, is affected by the fact that he saw our town hall meeting in Toronto. And I think the thing that would have worried him most is that it was multi-ethnic. And so all of Jagdeo's talk about they're doing things for African Guyanese, I invite him now to put out in the public domain what percentage of the $666 billion in contract went to African Guyanese. He can't do that because he will be embarrassed. He knows full well that they utilize most of the resources and put it in the hands of the PPP elite, their family, friends, and favorite. They don't like that concept, but it's a true concept. They just discriminate and put those resources. Barra Jagdeo must have forgotten that he had a head of the presidential secretariat who said that there is no black qualified to be an ambassador. That speaks a lot to the PPP. What he's trying to do now is to paint the PPP as some party that is interested in national unity. They aren't. The fact of the matter is the figures now show that the PPP cannot win based on Indo-Guyanese support alone. And therefore, they are utilizing the money of the state, bribing African Guyanese. And that's a fact. In fact, I have said to them, take the money, but know how to vote. Because the PPP is going to use it in the local government election. Personally, I sent people who collected between $200,000 and $250,000. Of course, they voted for us. So Barra could run and hide. But the truth is known out there. Barra Jagdeo is leading a kleptocratic, racist political party. That's the reality on the ground. And he shouldn't talk about opportunism. The PPP spends its life seeking to dominate and control every aspect of life in Guyana. And to do that, they are bribing left, right, and center. But I believe the Guyanese people are sensible. They will do just what they did in the local government elections. Take the money, but vote APNU.
Correct. Take the money and vote APNU. Since we are on the topic of Barra Jagdeo, Mr. Norton, for a number of years, even before you become leader of the opposition, you've been calling for Mr. Barra Jagdeo to put his assets against his wealth, and you will resign as leader of the opposition. Is that still stand today?
Look, I don't even have to be afraid. Barra Jagdeo cannot. First of all, he wouldn't want to show us all of his wealth. That's the first problem. So he's not going to do it. But let's assume he decides he's going to put his wealth overseas and in Guyana and put it aside of his income so that the Guyanese can see that he accumulated the wealth in an honest way. He would never do that because he just didn't. The evidence suggests that he is far wealthier than one can legally accumulate. And it is restricted to him. I pointed out that Kelvin Alleyne can do the same because the wealth they have transcends their ability to earn legally. I pointed out that Sam Hines were noticed talking nonsense got a house that value millions for next to nothing. They have no moral right to speak. And then they like to talk as if they are peaches, you know. Now, all he's talking about rigging elections. The person who had to admit that they were involved in fraud and bribery was Barra Jackdale. He couldn't find an explanation with all his alliance specialists. He could not find an explanation as to how a dead woman signed on the PPP list. And so he had no choice. And if Guyana was a country in which the police was doing their work, the person would have been charged, and that would have been a good deterrent for the next election. Because you must understand what happened. They wanted to win in African Guyanese communities. And when they weren't getting the support, they decided that they will forge signatures and to achieve their objectives. Unfortunately, they were exposed, or fortunately, depending on which side of the spectrum you stand. And the truth is out there. The political party that has been clearly proven in law to have rigged is the PPP. And the political party that established that it used forged signatures is the PPP. So he could try to hide what he wants to hide. The reality is out there. The recount would have shown what the reality is. So I wouldn't worry about it, Jack.
Mr. Norton, recently there is a ad and some speculations that Mr. Clifton Hickens, the Commissioner of Police, will be appointed on Monday. I don't know how honest that is or how we can trust that information, but I would like to get a comment on you as to if there was any consultation with you and the then President, Mr. Alleyne, in terms of appointing Mr. Clifton Hickens. I know for a fact that you have said repeatedly that you will not support him. Could you explain to us why you won't support him and if there was any consultation whatsoever?
I have repeated it. Clifton Hickens is neither certified nor qualified to be a commissioner of police. What is worse is that the police force has deteriorated under Clifton Hickens. Policemen are doing as they like. Now the police, the head of the police administration, most of them, not all, are involved in serious corruption. Look at the allegations against Brutus. So, in the first place, I have no consultation with the president. What I did is I wrote the president a letter identifying the things that are happening in the police force, the Brutus case, the fact that Clifton Hickens lied on the oath in Guyana in the investigations into the shooting in Linden, when he said he didn't speak to Minister Rui, and the records established that he spoke to Minister Rui. Additionally, Clifton Hickens is known for going into African Guyanese communities and campaigning on behalf of the police. Now, this is an institution that is supposed to be independent and operating guided by the Constitution in the interest of the people of Guyana. Clifton Hickens has shown that he is a political partisan and therefore can never get the support. Add to that the fact that the average Guyanese would have lost confidence in the police force and the Commissioner of Police, yet the Teixeira has the audacity to write that people have confidence in the Guyana police force and that it is in the best interest of Guyana for Clifton Hickens to be appointed. That can only be in the best interest of Guyana if you see Guyana's future as one of lawlessness. Because what is happening at the top of the police force cannot be an example. But then don't forget, the very government is accused of serious corruption. Barra Jackdale is trying his best to get away from Sugate. where for the first time Guyanese saw him stammer and stutter when he was asked about Sue and the serious allegations of bribery and corruption. And then, if you look who they align with, a maverick, and I've said this more than before, a maverick like Gonzalez, who is prepared to do anything to get what he wants from Venezuela, even at the expense of our territorial sovereignty and integrity. I would say to you, again, you had this drug burst in the Northwest, and who was fingered? The police. You had the paper shards case in which a policeman was working and going towards the video evidence, and the police went after him rather than the people who allegedly commit the crime. And so the People's Progressive Party is a network of criminals masquerading as a government. And this is not the first time. Between 1992 and 2015, we saw how corrupt they were. We saw how lawless they were. They went out of power, they returned. And all they have done is accentuated the illegalities. They have accentuated the crimes. So Barra Jackdaw has to talk. He has to defend, because the PPP's back is against the wall, and the people of Ghana know that they are not benefiting from what is happening.
Mr. Norton, is there any, if the president is to go ahead and appoint Mr. Higgins in an undemocratic manner, how would you respond? And is the international community aware of this new development?
Yes, the international community is aware. In fact, I think I brought it to the attention of at least one ambassador, I wouldn't state his who, from the time it occurred. So I know they are aware. We have already indicated that we will look at legal action. But you know, this government has no respect for law. And so I wouldn't hold my breath. They probably need Hicken to continue to protect them. And when you are cornered, you tend to go and give support to those who are in the same corner with you. And Hicken and them are in the same corner, the corner of lawlessness, the corner of rape of the Guyanese society. And so one anticipates that they might go in that direction, but we hope good sense prevail, because if you make Hicken commissioner of police, the police force will get worse, lawlessness will increase, because if you at the top are accused, how could you tell those below you to do anything that is upright and of moral rectitude? And so the appointment of Hicken will continue the downward spiral of the Ghana Police Force.
Okay, Mr. Norton. I want to turn my attention now to the appointment of the Chief Justice and the Chancellor. For years now, Guyana has been embarrassed by these two appointments, and one would say why the PNC or the APNU did not appoint when they were in office. And, you know, we keep going round and round in circles to these appointments. How damaging is this for the Guyanese people, not having these appointments?
If you do not have confirmed Chancellor and Chief Justice, they are vulnerable. You're only now dependent on them living by their own moral compass and not being controlled and directed by the government. And so once people are acting, they are vulnerable, because the president or the government will have to appoint them, and they wouldn't want to follow with the government. But this issue is an issue that should have been resolved a while. I believe one of the first things I did when I became leader of the opposition was to send a letter to the president saying, we support the appointment of the Chancellor and the Chief Justice. Now, this is one of the provisions in which there has to be agreement. So it's not like just meaningful consultation. There has to be agreement. I've given him my agreement. He refused to accept it. He said he will do it when he wanted to, and he's always promised to do it. But it is vintage finale. It is vintage PPP. If they don't get what they want, they will do anything to ensure that their wishes are honored in some fashion. And I think they have in mind who they want to appoint. They can challenge the credentials of the two persons. They were both appointed in the period of the PPP in existence. And so they can challenge that. So they opted to continue to keep them acting so that that becomes like swords of Damocles over their heads so that they can get their desired outcomes. The entire judiciary is in trouble. There are some who are standing up and trying to be independent, but the PPP doesn't believe in the rule of law, and our judiciary will suffer for that.
Okay. And you're on record as to giving your support to both Chancellor and
My agreement.
your agreement.
I said in a letter, put it in writing, that we agree and that he can go ahead. So the ball is in his court.
Okay. Mr. Norton, I want to turn my attention to elections in Guyana and the PNC and by extension APNU readiness for election. What can you tell the Guyanese people in terms of preparations for the upcoming election in 2025 or whenever they call it?
We have done the analysis from the time I became leader. We recognized that the first thing we had to do was to meet out to our support base, and we have been doing that. I think we have activated our support base. The second thing we had to do is to meet out to the indigenous community, and I'm just naming them not necessarily in that order. We have been doing that. In more recent times, we have been going into the Indo-Guyanese community because we believe we need to do political work all across the country and with the people of Guyana. I want to point out that all Jack Lew is talking about the party being multi-ethnic and willing for multi-ethnicity. Every time that we go into an Indian community, the PPP goes in and threatens them. We've just come from one Indian community on the west coast of Obese, and the minute we left, the families that attended that meeting were abused, and until now they continue to be abused by the People's Progressive Party. So they feel that they should go into Afro-Guyanese community, but nobody should be allowed to go into a Guyanese community. Jack Lew must understand that if we cannot go into Indo-Guyanese community and they leave the people there alone, they will have difficulties coming into our community. We believe that there should be a free society and every political party should be allowed to campaign in any community. But if Jack Lew believes that he is going to threaten those persons who support us, let him know we will reciprocate.
Okay. Mr. Norton, Elections Commission. It seems to not be a readiness with the Elections Commission in terms of preparations for the upcoming elections, in terms of a clean voters list and biometrics, which your party has been calling for. Where are we at? What is the update on GCOM readiness for elections?
Before I go to GCOM, I should say to you, we are always preparing for election. One of the things I said when I became leader is that we will be in permanent election campaign mode. We have been doing that, meeting out, etc. As it relates to GCOM, we have made it clear the present chairman of GCOM votes every time with the PPP, and that is not the intention of the legislation. The intention was for the two political parties to have the issues and meet and resolve them, and as far as is practically possible, avoid a vote from the chairman. What you have now is the chairperson just voting every time with the PPP, and in some regard disqualifying herself for the job. We continue to fight for clean voter list and biometrics. And we do believe we will beat them in the next election, but it will be a much better victory if we get a clean voter list and biometrics.
Okay. Last but not least, you have a people-centered development strategy program, and which has gained a lot of traction from younger generation. And most young people ask the question, what does this entail and what it has for me as a youngster in Guyana? Because at the rate now, there's absolutely nothing for the younger generation in Guyana, and it does not encourage them. That's why we have so many migration to the diaspora.
The people-centered development strategy emerged after an analysis of what is happening in Guyana. When one analyzes what is happening in Guyana, one sees that there is the pouring in of oil resources, enough to distribute properly. The first thing is discrimination in distribution. I mentioned asking Jack Bill to put out the real figures and contracts of those who will benefit from the $666 billion Guyana dollars, and let us show us how many are Afro-Guyanese and how much money they are making. Because he could say it's 20 of them, but if each one of them making 2 million, it's 40 million. We want to know how much they're making and how many of them. So we get an idea of what is the share. They can't do that, they'll be embarrassed. Now, we recognize that they are the resources. The problem is the government wants to hog the resources and enrich a few. We believe that the resources from oil and gas should meet the people of Guyana. It is in that context we said we will pursue a people-centered development strategy, meaning we will put the people of Guyana first and ensure that the people of Guyana benefit. We've talked about our rent to own. We have said we are going to have what we call a 50-50 program, where we give $50,000 to young people, 50,000 of them, put them in educational institutions. And I want to make it clear, Jack Lew was lying when he said we will get rid of the 40,000 for 10-day workers. We said we will give 50,000. But the difference between our approach and Jack Lew's approach is Jack Lew's 40,000 is aimed at creating dependence. It is aimed at being able to control young people. We have it differently. We're going to give the 50,000, but we'll put them in educational institutions and train them so that they can get proper jobs. We know for sure we have to have a nationwide literacy program, because what Guyana's produced under the People's Progressive Party is a high level of illiteracy. And as this world is digitalized and informed by information technology, your population has to have the education to be able to utilize those tools. So we will have to do that. We've also said that young people, we will train them in financial literacy and small business management, and we will give them grants and loans so that they can develop. We have also said our people-centered development strategy will seek to make communities sustainable. In the Amerindian communities, the indigenous villages, there is need for programs to develop our indigenous people and to give them the skills so that they also can get contracts. Why must we continue to have indigenous people living in communities, African living in communities, African Guyanese, and poor Indians, and only one set of people are getting all the contracts? We intend to change that with our people-centered development strategy. We have said we are going to give a cash grant in a more structured way and organize it in such a way that it impacts people and they can develop and become independent. This thing cannot be just about putting some money here and putting some money there. It has to be about creating a society in which the quality of life of the people is improved and the people themselves feeling part and parcel of the development process. And our people-centered development strategy is aimed at doing just that, putting resources in the hands of the people, improving their quality of life, making them feel independent, promoting small businesses, increase employment. We have said we will give a livable wage. We have already said in coming to government 35%, and we will engage in negotiations to ensure that all the people of Ghana get a living wage. We have also said the private sector workers must be considered. And so we will look at how we can help the private sector workers to improve their quality of life. Because a lot of times in the private sector, they don't get the kind of income that will allow them to progress. So those are the kind of things our people send to development strategy. And that is what Jagdo is afraid of. Jagdo is afraid of a government that will deliver goods and services to the people, improve the quality of life, because that will remove their domination and control.
Clearly, it would. Public service, well, for years, the public service are under the government. Public service workers are complaining literally. We just had the teachers striking for a livable wage. And we've learned that you were willing in your first 100 days in office to, at least a 30% increase or thereabout after consultation. Is that feasible, and have you made a study on that?
We have provided, if you go back to our press conferences, we have provided evidence. One, that we can cut waste. We're talking here about the money that exists. If you can cut waste and corruption, you can pay the entire public service the money they need. And we said in Common to Power, we will give a 30 to 35% increase. And then we engage in collective bargaining to ensure that the trade unions are involved. It is important to know that this, under the People's Progressive Party, when they came to power in 1992, they were vibrant trade unions. They have destroyed virtually every trade union that operates in the public sector. So clearly the PPP is anti-working class, and that point needs to be made.
Okay. Mr. Norton, last but not least, I know you have a busy schedule today. A question was sent to me. Why should young people engage in politics, and why they should vote for you and the People's Congress and the People's National Congress?
Let me say this. There is a particular definition in politics in which it says politics is the authoritative allocation of resources, meaning the political system, the government, has the authority to allocate the resources, and how those resources are allocated are critical to politics. We are saying to young people, we are going to allocate those resources in a way that you will benefit and benefit significantly and improve. At present, the government allocates those resources to a small group of people who are having a nice life, can drive all the fancy vehicles, do everything. But the average man is excluded. I'm saying to you, a vote for us will mean that there will be a reallocation of the resources, and the people of Ghana, young people, people in poverty, will benefit, and that will be our focus.
Thank you. And that's a clear focus. Mr. Norton, we've come to the end of our time, and I'll give you the last words. If you just look directly to the camera and speak to the viewers and let them know, what is your take on Guyana, where Guyana is, and where would you, as the president, like to see it go?
Like I've said, Ghana is in crisis, and our task really is to get Ghana out of crisis. And we do believe, having adumbrated our people-centered development strategy, we do have a plan to take Ghana out of poverty. We have just recently released our 20-point plan for the oil and gas sector. And if you follow those who know about oil and gas, have lauded it, of course you expect Marajak to be involved in his usual garbage, and so he did. But we do have a clear plan, we have clear policies, and government under the PNCRA, PNU will take Guyana forward and improve the quality of life of the Guyanese people. And that is what we set out to do.
Thank you, viewers, for listening and tuning in. Love you all. See you next time.